Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be looking at simple interest, right? So I guess the first thing to start with is what is simple interest, right? So simple interest is the amount that I guess we gain when we put money into the bank to account for inflation. So to put this into simple terms, we'll start with first what inflation is, right? So inflation is the process where the value of money goes down. So what I mean by that is if we think about the prices of things, right? So let's think about, let's say milk, right? Let's say we have a carton of milk, and let's say in 1925, so let's say 1925, milk might have been, let's say 50 cents, right? So 100 years ago, milk was worth 50 cents, right? Let's say maybe 1 liter of milk, right? However, as time progresses, right, the value or the price of the milk changes, right? So if we think about milk right now, so let's say in 2025, 1 liter of milk might be, 350, for example. Okay, so say milk in 2025, the price of that milk is 350, right? So now the value of money has gone down, right? Because you can now buy less things, right? You can buy, or you need more money to buy the same amount of things, right? So let's say I have $7, right? If I have $7, I can buy 2 cartons of milk. But if I had $7 back in 1925, I could buy 14 cartons of 1 liter milk, right? So this is referred to as inflation, right? This is the process where the value of money goes down because you can buy less things with the same amount of money, right? Now, when we put money into a bank, that value, the value of the money is going to go down, right? Just like our $7 of cash, right? That's going to lose value, right? Because we can't buy, as I've said before, the same quantity of things, right? So let's say I have $5,000 in the bank. So $5,000 in the bank. If I just leave that $5,000 in the bank, it's just going to lose value, right? Because due to inflation, the price of everything is going up. So it doesn't really feel like a good deal to just leave money in the bank, right? Why would we just leave it in the bank if it's going to lose value over time, right? So what we instead do, or what instead happens, is we gain interest. So interest is an additional amount we get on top of the money we already have to account for inflation. So if I have $5,000, inflation rate or the interest rate might be 10%. So that means that every year I get 10% extra of what I started with to account for inflation, right? So the price of everything might be rising, but the my savings or my money in the bank is also rising, right? Therefore, we're not losing purchasing power, right? So let's say interest rate is 10%. So it's 10% every year. The rate or the money I have in the bank is going to increase by this 10%, right? So it's going to be, so 10% of this is going to be 500, right? So the next year, I'm going to have 5,500 uh, dollars, right, in the bank, right? So that's what interest is, right? Now, there's two types of interest. There's simple interest and compound interest. So in this video, we're just going to be looking at simple interest. So simple interest is when the interest we gain is a constant amount. That means the amount of money we gain every year is the same, right? So it's usually a certain percent of the initial amount, right? So in this case, it's 10% of 5,000, right? So that's 500 of simple interest we gain, right? And every year it's going to be the same. So let's say this is 2025. I have $5,000. In 2026, it's going to go up by another 500, right? So now I have 5,500. Then in 2027, it's going to be 10% not of this 5,500, but the original. So it's going to be another 500, right? So now I have $6,000, right? And so on. So simple interest is a certain percentage of the initial amount that gets added on every year, right? So the amount that gets added on is the same. So that's simple interest, right? There's also compound interest, but we won't be covering that in this video, right? So that's what we've learned so far, right? So we've learned about inflation. Inflation is the process where the value of money decreases due to the increase of prices. And to account for that, we have interest, which leads to our money also increasing in value. So we don't lose purchasing power. right? And simple interest is interest that gives us a constant increase in money, right? So constantly money in the bank is increasing by the same amount, right? That's what simple interest is, right? So hopefully that made sense so far. We're going to look at an example now, right? So here we have an example. So it says Alexandra has $30,000 in a saving account, in a savings account that earns 10% annually. The interest is not compounded. To the nearest cent, how much will she have in one total year? So we have $30,000, right? So $30,000, and she earns 10% interest every year. So 10% every year. So we're asking how much will she earn in 1 year, right? So this is going to be how much will she have in total? Yeah. So this is how we calculate it, right? So we say the interest earned I is equal to the initial amount. So that's our P. So that's 30,000, right? Times the interest rate, right? Which is we're going to express as a decimal. So that's our R, right? So it's going to be 0.1 times the amount of years that have passed, right? Because if it's 1 year, we would just add that, 10%. But if it was 2 years, we'd add the 10% twice, right? Which is how we multiply by the time, right? But in this case, it's just 1 year. So we just multiply by this one, right? So this interest earned is going to be 10% of 30,000, which is 3,000, right? So in 1 year or every year, Alexandra is going to get an additional $3,000 in interest, right? So in 1 year, the total amount she's going to have is 33,000, right? Because she starts with 30,000 and then she earns 3,000 in interest, right? So the total amount is going to be 33,000, right? So that's the formula we use. And yeah, that's all for this video. Hopefully that all makes sense. And yeah, don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.